The current topic du jour is refunds on tariffs.
Right.
And we are like the thought leaders and intend to be the process leaders for how you get your money back from the government. I want to put it on my tombstone someday. I got $50 billion from the government into the hands of the American citizen.
Welcome to the Upstarts Podcast, our weekly show where we talk to emerging startup founders about their Upstart Moment. Upstarts are challengers who punch above their weight to take on the status quo and improve the world, all while building a big business too. I'm your host, Alex Conrad, founder and editor of Upstarts Media. I'm excited to be joined today by Ryan Petersen, founder and CEO of Flexport, and the man of the moment who is trying to get people their money back with tariff AI agents and all sorts of cool new stuff you just announced, right, Ryan?
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
This podcast is brought to you by Mercury, radically different banking that's already loved by 300,000 entrepreneurs. So Ryan is someone that I've covered before. I wrote a 2022 Forbes cover story when you were an upstart then, and I think you might still be an upstart now, just it's always in different ways.
Always an upstart, I guess. I like the framing.
It's also great because you're kind of tech's bat signal for whenever something happens involving tariffs or global trade. I feel like the tech industry goes to X to see what thread or hot takes you're posting.
Either the bat symbol or the hurricane reporter that's just like, oh no, everything's screwed up over here. Let's see what, tell you live from the front line what's happening.
Is that rewarding or is it a burden that, we all kind of are waiting for your thoughts on global trade and really complicated things?
It's a blessing for us is like getting to be on the front lines and building a brand for Flexport, being known for a real world business that actually has kind of boots on the ground, understand what's happening out there in the world. And I think it positions us pretty well for the world that we're in right now too. Of like over the last 15 years, everyone's told me to build a SaaS business at every various turns, and now it's like, you see why we did this real world thing. It turns out SaaS businesses are very disruptible, and the real world is harder to do.
And now Flexport is an AI company, which we will get into as well. But first, one thing that I think is really interesting is you have the tech industry knowing you for your thoughts on these topics, very relevant. You have the logistics industry working with you, also flaming you and questioning you throughout the history of Flexport, which you've been doing now for over a decade. What would be the way you describe Flexport today to the person who is in neither of those camps and doesn't know the company yet?
Yeah, I mean, you said we're an AI company, which is actually quite true. I mean, I think we're going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of AI. And so we are starting to talk way more about how we're using AI to automate logistics decision-making. But then unlike like a pure AI companies, that we actually translate that algorithmic decision-making coming from AI into real-world execution. Like it's that combo that we're like, have the best AI models, feed them the best data to make good decisions, and then immediately actually go execute that. So how are we going to route containers? How are we going to load the container, route it, move the inventory around the world, get it through customs compliantly, and all these things. So kind of depends who I'm talking to, but I try, if I'm talking to a customer, it's certainly like we move your stuff from A to B more efficiently and cheaper and more reliably.
Is moving things more efficiently something that you've always felt passionate about, or where does the origin of your expertise here start?
Ironically, I really dislike paperwork, and so I thought I should start a company to do the paperwork for other people because other people probably also dislike paperwork. Which is not a bad way to start a company, although it's not something I'm uniquely good at in life. Like I'm not a paperwork guy. There's a lot of paperwork required to ship stuff and do customs and things like that. So that was the original idea. I used to be an importer with my older brother, David Petersen, and I got to give him a shout out. And we had a business partner named Mike Kenko. And the three of us had this e-com business 25 years ago, literally like early 2000s. And we were importing motor scooters. We were the first dealer for Geely in the United States. Geely's the Chinese car company that bought Volvo.
Yeah.
They used to make these really crappy motor scooters. I didn't even know they made cars back then. They had terrible motor scooters that we would import. There's always problems in any business, but the logistics piece, the customs piece was just very, very frustrating.
Were you a big scooter guy, or were you guys just opportunistic?
Entrepreneurs. Mike was the real entrepreneur. And then he and my brother were college roommates. I was a few years younger than them. They kind of like, my brother's a programmer at Intel. When he graduated college, he was like working at Intel and funding this thing on the side, and then eventually went and did it. And it was very much, I think the first business that they had actually was selling fake IDs. Now, this sounds bad. It's not illegal. They were Elvis Presley IDs just for fun.
Nice. Okay.
Like, it's like classic entrepreneurship, like
we're taping in New York today. That's very Canal Street.
I was my comms team's freaking out right now. But 1999 on eBay, like you could buy, or Princess Diana, I once got into a bar with the Elvis Presley idea, actually. No.
That's amazing. Well, and also you guys have a funny relationship, because my favorite fact about meeting your brother when I reported on Flexport years ago was your Twitter or X handle is types fast. And what's his handle?
He's types faster.
So does that mean you were first and he just had to one-up you? Or?
Yes, classic. He does type faster than me, though. So
there you go. Why are you types fast?
I don't know. I used to have at Ryan Petersen as my name is spelled. And then in like a fit of this is a waste of my time, I deleted my Twitter handle, and by the time I came back, it was taken. And I don't know, that day I just I'll just choose this thing, and
the rest is history.
Yes, there it is.
Okay, so you opportunistically get into this import-export, very Seinfeld, George Costanza of you. Was that something that you thought you would turn a whole career into, or how do you go from there to the origins of Flexport?
Yeah, so we were importing business. I think the George Costanza kind of thing is interesting, actually, because the reason that's funny is because logistics is this weird, mysterious, industry, and the idea of George Costanza, man of mystery, is sort of just a funny idea.
Young people in tech are watching this probably do not get this reference, but Google Art Vandelay, after this episode.
And funny enough, our demo account that we would use, our salespeople would use to demo Flexport was always called Vandelay Industries. And then we had a real customer named Vandelay Industries sign up for Flexport. And then people would accidentally demo this guy's account by mistake.
That is incredible. That is a really unique.
We had to change our demo account because of that guy. Yeah, so it was Paul Graham has this great essay called Schlep Blindness, which I recommend to a lot of entrepreneurs. And it's Schlep Blindness in that essay is what he taught. Schlep is an arduous journey. And so Schlep Blindness is this idea that the worst problems in your life, your conscious brain is unable to think about them at all. You're just completely blind that this problem exists. And in his essay, his example for that is Stripe, that every internet entrepreneur ever, including me and everybody else I knew back in the before Stripe, which is 2010, I forget when they started. If you were an entrepreneur like we were in the early days of the internet, you had to go through and get your bank, you had to fill out an application with your bank to be permitted to accept credit card payments.
Right.
And they would take months. They didn't care about you. It's like a bank. And then you had to go through authorize.net, the payment gateway. It's no API. It's the worst integration ever to set up an e-com site or any kind of SaaS or anything. So literally 100% of internet entrepreneurs, at least those who wanted to take money, so the good ones, all went through this painful process. And then we're completely blind to it. In our case, we went on and cool, let's go sell some motor scooters. There was $100 billion opportunity available to every entrepreneur. No, we're not all Patrick Collison's and John Collison, but still, it was there. And so now Paul Graham's new favorite example of Schlep blindness is Flexport, or at least it was. I haven't talked to him about that essay in a little while, but he was starting to use that as anyone who ever imported anything went through this pain. Yeah. Saw that it's a nightmare to fill out paperwork, and no one can tell you where your stuff is, when it's going to arrive, and most of all, you can't tell you what it's going to cost until after the fact. The bills are always wrong, extra fees and stuff. So that was where we experienced that firsthand, and then kind of did nothing about it. I started another company with my brother and Mike, the same guys, selling data on imports and exports. So kind of the two big problems that we found running an import-export business were sourcing. As e-com entrepreneurs, as tech guys, was sourcing good products and then logistics. So the first product the first company we found, it's called Import Genius, and it's for sourcing. It's for letting you search bills of lading.
And it continued for a long time.
Still going. It's a nice business. Yeah, we've owned that for the last 15 years. We started it 15 years ago. And that company lets you search public manifest data. It's a search engine for shipping manifests, and then look up factories and learn about them when you're doing sourcing. And then only later I finally come back and be I don't know, what's the next thing? What's the next thing we're going to do? And I remembered how painful importing was. So we started Flexport with this idea of TurboTax for importing or something. It was really started for small business, and only in the last 4 or 5 years have become where we work with a huge percentage of the, more growing percentage of the Fortune 500. A lot of big enterprises are using Flexport for customs brokerage and freight.
And the idea was originally you're using software to basically solve some of the choke points in this process without having to own the whole process yourself, right?
Yeah, we try to stay asset light, and that's one of the nice things about the business, that you don't have to own physical assets.
Okay, so you start as this sort of YC style idea to use software to solve this annoying problem. Were you thinking modularly, like we'll just add more products from there? Or what was sort of the journey from this early idea about, 10, 12 years ago into the more recent times?
Yeah, so definitely actually the YC pitch was about being a customs brokerage. And we were pretty disciplined, at least in the beginning, that's all we did was customs. And that's still our best, the crown jewels of Flexport and where we're most differentiated, especially last year and last week.
And that's handling stuff going through customs from one country to another.
Yeah, we help you figure out your paperwork to clear customs, and in particular, where that's hard is in the United States with the tariff environment. And so we've been the best in the world, I can say that unequivocally, at helping companies manage tariffs.
And we'll talk more about what you're doing with AI there in a bit. But first, I want to.
So we started in customs. But we did include in the pitch, hey, that's all we do now. But we had aspirations to add freight forwarding, fulfillment, trucking, the whole financing. It's in the original slide deck. I sometimes share it with our team because we've now launched all of those things and more.
Yeah.
And the team's often like, hey, we're getting distracted. Like the dogma of business is just do one thing. And I'm like, hey, it's still in the vision, guys. Look, here I pull up the old slide deck. Be like, we were always going to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the first thing, was we wanted to sell more and more things. We also wanted to move up market. Like in the beginning, we just really worked with kind of like a lot of hardware startups, and there was like that whole Kickstarter era, and e-com was venture backed back then. Now it's more bootstrapped, but like back when we were like probably had 80 or 90% market share in the D2C e-com, venture backed e-com space.
Got it.
And that was actually headwinds for our growth because that space ran into some trouble over the years. But we knew we would move up market, didn't know how exactly. Like I had been an e-com entrepreneur, and I didn't know the problems and complexities of the enterprise, so it probably took us longer to build the right products to go up market. And I always tell entrepreneurs, like your biggest customer is almost always going to be a function of your second biggest customer. Like you can't go after Walmart on day one. Like you have probably not. Like you have to work your way up to that. So that's taken us a better part of a decade to where we're like truly ready for Fortune 500s and have the right products.
You also had these kind of wild roller coaster swings, I feel, where you could ride a trend like the e-commerce maybe and get a business boost, but then that goes away. Or COVID, obviously, it's like there's no shipping and then suddenly there's a ton of shipping. And that's when we went deep together. We went to the Oakland docks to look at some of those container ships, I guess now almost 5 years ago. And you guys were sort of the folks on the scene, of the moment, helping kind of reopen everything. Has that been something that you intentionally look for and lean into? Like, what are the macro trends that help Flexport? Or is it more reactive? Like, hey, we're just here.
I think lesson for founders out there, and I assume you have a lot of founders in your audience, is like, you have to remember that no one cares about your startup. Like, I'm blessed that you're asking me questions about my startup and, you seem to be interested in it. But in general, nobody cares about your startup. They care about things that are happening that are relevant in their world. And they're only going to care about you to the extent that you are either provide perspective on that other thing or are a good example of the thing.
Or directly make their life easier.
Or, yeah, of course, make their life easier from a customer standpoint. But like from the broader world of like, how do you make your company well-known and remarkable? And, it's like you have to... If you're just talking about yourself and self-promoting, like nobody cares. Like it's free these days. You can go on LinkedIn and say, I'm the best at this. And like literally it's free and nobody cares. So you have to figure out, okay, what's the thing that we can provide unique insight into? And of all the companies in the world that I've seen, like I think Flexport has the most opportunity to do that, where you're just like, we're literally the circulatory system, the connective tissue for the economy. How are these goods being moved? What's happening? Where are the blockages? Where are the which businesses are doing well or not doing well? At least for the physical world, it's hard to imagine a company that could have more access to data than Flexport about what's happening.
But then you take that and you do market or you do talk about it.
Yeah. And then I've managed to build up. I mean, it started with the Long Beach port when stuff was stuck offshore there. I think at that day I had about 30,000 Twitter followers, which is a decent number, but it wasn't like that big. And then I sent a taco truck to the port, and with the idea that we're trying to figure out why is there 100 ships stuck offshore, and we're trying to get a sense for it. And I figured that the union workers would know. And how do I get the union workers to talk to us? I know we'll just like rent a taco truck and we'll give free tacos, and then they'll come to eat tacos and then tell us what's going on. That no one really picked up on that story. I thought it was a fun story that people would write about or like retweet or something. No one really cared. But the insights we learned from the union workers were they were saying the truck drivers were the problem. So then I took the CEO of a trucking company on a boat. And this is a great way. Actually, you can use this if you're trying to get information from a source. If you get them on a boat, they can't leave. They're trapped.
Hostage audience, okay.
And so I wrote, and I learned so much about the port and the operations and why the ships were stuck there and that on that boat trip that I tweeted about it. And people, I don't know, the visuals of like the guy renting a boat to go to the port and see what's happening went pretty viral. And I think my Twitter following since then is 10x, but the next day it like tripled. And then this thing kind of compound on itself that the more people that are interested in what you have to say, then they share it and you get more people. So
has it helped the business? Because you also have always faced accusations from incumbents that you are brash, you're loud, that you are the self-promoter, even though you're saying that people default to not care about things, and maybe you have to fight to get them to care.
Most of those people are competitors of ours that talk trash. I don't know. I think it's sort of, I only pay attention to what customers have to say and just stay laser focused on that, and they're quite happy with us. We have 70.
So does going viral help you get more customers?
I assume so. I think it helps. On some level, I do it for fun, but it does help build credibility that like, hey, it depends what you're going viral for. But like if it's about, hey, unique insight into what's happening in the world. And that's where I think the interesting part of my social media presence is like actually competency. Like here's what's happening in customs. And the current topic du jour is refunds on tariffs.
Right.
And we are like the thought leaders and intend to be the process leaders for how you get your money back from the government. I want to put it on my tombstone someday. I got $50 billion from the government into the hands of the American citizen. And
hopefully not soon, though.
No, someday, many years in the future. But it's a generational opportunity. But like I think if you're providing real insight into things, then people will be interested, and it has to help the brand and help the company. But I think at least when I look for like what accounts are interesting on Twitter or other places that I would want to follow, it's like a mix of comedy and competency that does well. And this is how I think why sales is very hard to teach, because the best salespeople are like funny and competent, and it's very hard to teach the humor side of things. You can teach the competence side of things, but hopefully it helps. I don't know. It probably turns some people off if I'm not taking myself too seriously all the time. But
well, was there a moment where you were like, okay, we have figured it out, the tech works, we have the competence and the substance to back up our big ambitions?
Yeah, I mean, many, like you can see it in the growth figures of Flexport. Like if you look at the top 100 freight forwarders in the world, and Flexport's probably, we're number 5 on the biggest trade lane in the world in terms of volume, the amount of cargo that's moved. We're the only one in the top 100 founded after the web browser was created. And the people come because the technology helps them get better visibility and control, know when's my stuff going to arrive, what products, what inventory's in each container, link that up from a data systems perspective. So we've always had plenty of proof points that we know and what customers say about us. I would say last year, the way that we handled, where there was just this stark difference in how Flexport responded to the tariffs versus the competition in building technology to help you figure out exactly what amount was owed on each product. There were 53 changes to the tariff code last year in 52 weeks, so more than one a week. And the rest of the customs brokerage industry basically failed to keep up. And our customer, we en masse, we've been taking, especially large industrials and automotive companies, because they have steel and aluminum. And the government put these new regulations out for steel and aluminum for how tariffs are calculated it's not that hard to do, but it requires database technology that they didn't have, for lack of a better term. And so we just started rolling up even like German car companies taken from German freight forwarders.
Wow.
Like this, as this American California company has no business doing that other than the tax. So.
Well, so let's talk about the tension there. Is something like tariffs and chaos in the market there, is that good for your business? When all of that was announced last year, what's going through your mind?
from a market share perspective, it allowed us to, we doubled our volumes in our customs business and in our e-com fulfillment businesses last year, 2x growth, and driven by that. So we take market share like crazy, just absolute growth in this sector. I never want to say it's good because it's really hurting our customers. Like, you definitely don't want to celebrate that, but certainly we're relatively much better than other providers for these companies right now. So yeah, it's been a net positive for us. But like, I'd rather the market grow. Like, the market has probably shrunk for total number of entries and total amount of customs or total amount of freight being moved. So it's better to be part of a growing market. One of the framings I've always used is, so global trade has grown 4% annually since the Mongol invasions around 1200 AD. Like, you've just had this and it looks like a crazy ex-Silicon Valley hockey stick, like, even though it's 4%. And the biggest freight forwarder in the world has less than 4% market share. Mm-hmm. So you're like, actually, I don't need to compete with anybody. If I just take the growth in the market, I can be number one and do that every year, right? You can. It's much better to be part of a growing industry than it is to like, oh, let's fight over the knife fight over a shrinking pie. So I wouldn't call it, like, long run, it's not good for tariffs are bad for business. But short run, we've managed to be nimble and better at helping customers with the problems.
When I launched Upstarts Media last year, I had big ambitions and a lot to figure out. I knew I needed a bank that could move at my speed and grow with me too. With Mercury, I was able to get started in minutes without leaving my desk. Mercury made it easy to send and receive wires and manage the cash flow of our growing business from day one. Now, I can spend less time with busy work and more time with the founders I like to cover. Building a media startup comes with new challenges every day, but with Mercury, banking is one I don't need to worry about. You don't accept outdated tools like floppy disks and fax machines anywhere else in your work and life. Why accept them for something as important as your money? Visit Mercury.com to learn more and apply online in minutes, like I did. Mercury is a fintech company, not an FDIC-insured bank. Banking services provided through Choice Financial Group and Column NA, members FDIC. When you think about the hardest moments of the business as a leader or intellectually, is it the bull times where you're trying to keep up, or was it the harder bear times where you're fighting for business? You know, we on the show talk about an Upstart moment where you're really back to the wall, trying to, change the status quo. What comes to mind first for you with that?
Well, every great story follows the hero's journey. Like, the story that great in the sense of like, oh, this will resonate with humans. The humans crave a story like this, which is ordinary boy, girl, ordinary person, world starts to go well. Life is getting better and better. Amazing, we're on top of the world, and then everything goes to hell. And then you get the comeback story. Like,
you can do that over and over and over. Right?
Yes, that is all the great movies and stories, and like that is what you should do in your journalism as you write stories and stuff. And I think startup stories should be like that too. Your sales pitch should be like that a little bit too. Like, how do I tell a compelling story for the customer? And Flexport's definitely had our climactic moment. I mean, you put me on the cover of Forbes. We raised several $1 billion over
$8 billion valuation.
Valuation was there. Customers like profitable. Lots of greatness happening. And then we had the fall, and for us that looked like, well, the COVID boom of containers undid itself, and the price of freight fell from $20,000 to $1,500. Right, and our revenue is quantity times price. At least in the freight part of our business, is like kind of an easy calculation to be like, oh, wow, the revenue tanked. We had also operationally made some mistakes in terms of we structured ourselves. We try to make it like in a pursuit of efficiency. We've built this really great workflow system that assigns work to operators. How do I move a container? And it's very intelligent, actually, but was the humans on the side, we the management screwed it up where we then assigned individuals to own each task in the system and go, you do this task over and over again for everybody. And it was, first of all, it's boring work, but more importantly, lack of accountability. Of like, something goes wrong in this container, you're like, I don't know, there's like 50 people that did something. Who's going to just own it and make sure it goes right? And that led to real quality problems. It's classic. If I'd have been more of a student, which I am now, of Toyota Production System and Lean, that entire universe is all about like the operators trained across all the tasks and like follows the part down the line. Instead of like in the American automotive world, they just do the same job over and over again. We got this problem wrong. So long story short, we took a real fall. We burned too much money. I brought in a CEO famously didn't work out.
I wrote the story at the time about you riding off into the sunset to become a venture capitalist at Founders Fund.
Yeah.
And it lasted, a couple months? It was not my...
I was the chairman of the board for about 6 months. So that was sort of like that downward swing that we took. And now that was 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And now we're like back on that, finally, like the comeback story that should make Flexport story the true hero's journey.
Was coming back the hardest part for you, or when you? Yeah,
it was. We had to cut costs pretty hard, but the bigger problem was our quality was really suffering, and like customer relationships we built for a decade had gone in this pursuit of efficiency to like the thing that they were here for was quality, reliable logistics, on-time performance delivered by tech was like it was failing.
Right, and if it's not better, they might as well go back to the old guys,
100%,
right?
100%. Yeah. The tech is only valuable if it delivers KPIs they care about. On-time performance, savings, consolidation benefits. So like that means like if I can play Tetris inside your containers, how do I load more stuff with algorithms to do that? Yeah, being on time, being more reliable, more predictable, better able to predict when is this cargo going to arrive. All of these things is what you care about. That's what, and like over the last 2.5 years, we just like complete turnaround to where we're now back to being best in class, especially in customs where we've got AI auditors. So an AI auditor actually audits every customs entry before we file it. And we have humans that also sample and do compliance reviews. Our error rate in customs we went from 1.8%, which is already quite good in the industry, to 0.2, which is just unheard of, 0.2% error rate. As just one of many, many examples where AI is suddenly like, oh my goodness, it's night and day what we can do on a quality basis. So revenue growth is really good. Net Promoter Score is a really good way to measure this. It was 73 last month. So
what was it at its nadir?
It went down during COVID. During COVID was pretty ugly. I think it got to a low of 17.
Wow. Before
someone decided that Net Promoter Score was not the reliable metric that we once thought it was, and we don't need to study this metric anymore.
And then you guys stopped, and then now you care about it again.
It came right back. I was only the chairman for about 6 months, but we brought it back and then made that the core focus, and have spent the last 2.5 years just like completely dialing quality, reliability, and then strategically, like if you're just a freight forwarder, and so freight forwarder coordinates freight moves, like containers most famously, but air freight, trucking. You're just like kind of this coordination layer to get freight moved from here to here. You're on some level of middleman. Buy low, sell high. And there's two kinds of middlemen. There's those who just buy low and sell high and add much value. And then there's those who coordinate complexity and streamline things. We've always tried to be that kind. But if you want to be a data provider and you want to be a system of record and an orchestration layer and provide other value here, analytics and AI, like you can't just do that on the subset of containers that they happen to broker with you. You need to be a technology provider for the enterprise, which means we've had to make our tech over the last 3 years work regardless if you ship the freight with Flexport or not. That we still are able to give you this orchestration layer, the algorithmic consolidation. So how do I load a container for you? You can ship the container with whoever you want, but our algorithms will coordinate that loading. Our algorithms will now route containers for you and choose what's the best way to move this cargo. And so that's like the big evolution is like really, really, truly taking the tech that we built for ourselves and then opening it up so you can now use it even if you don't buy freight from us.
You recently announced all these AI agents. Were the promise of those agents, was that a light at the end of the tunnel as you're kind of trying to rally the company to maybe feel positive momentum again, or was AI more of a lucky sort of technological breakthrough that fueled that? When we kind of think about how you get things moving again, what was sort of your thinking?
I would say it's lucky. We feel blessed also to be in San Francisco so that we know these people. Sam Altman's one of our Flexport's first investor. He was still a partner at YC when I went through YC. He was a partner there, so he was one of our first investors and friends. And being in Silicon Valley has been a huge advantage in my view. But it was lucky. Like ChatGPT was November of 23 or something like that. We had been going. It wasn't immediately obvious to us that this would be. It should have been. We can just apply this to automate all the tasks. In fact, a lot of the tasks that we have automated. Last year, we automated 50% of all the work. a lot of it we did without AI. Just, okay, write a script, move data from here to here, like fill out this form, parse this spreadsheet. And yes, we've been using machine learning for a decade, but like the new forms of large language models and generative AI really take hold. I would say December of last year was where it just changed everything for us, realizing that it was better at writing code than the engineers were, that an engineer writing code with Claude and Codex are 10 times better and maybe 100 times better than if they didn't have it. We're still finding out the limit. And kind of the auditor that we had, the AI auditor, we actually launched in October of last year.
Okay.
And it was kind of in December, November, where we started to see the results. We knew it would be better, but when we saw like, oh my God, our error rate went down to 0.2%. That was the wake-up call for us to go look at everything that we do and say where AI can be 10 times better than the human doing it. It's not just that it's cheaper. It can be 10 times better.
And so you have the AI agent making the container ships more efficient. You have one doing translation. There's a bunch of them, right?
Yeah, we've got lots and like many more. I mean, I think the really interesting how it changes the roadmap. We've probably pivoted like 30 to 40% of our engineers now just to building agents. And then there's way less planning than there used to be at Flexport in the roadmap. Like it used to be like a 1 year strategic plan. Like you would lay out, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Now you're kind of like, all right, let's go see if you can make this work. Come back to me 2 days later and it works.
Because of AI coding tools making
just
it easy.
like, we, for example, we built an AI agent this week, which we did not have at the beginning of the week and now we have, which audits every bill that comes in and reviews them against what actually, the bills, meaning from the ocean carriers or trucking companies, and it reviews every bill and determines if it's accurate against what they quoted us, against what the procurement database said, and against what actually happened on the shipment. So it checks the message logs, it checks the event logs of the shipment and says, is this the right amount? And did we invoice the customer correctly? And then, it's just like, we didn't have that at the beginning of this week, and now we do. And I didn't know last week that we would have that. I thought it would be cool. I told them to work on that. And so we have a list of like probably 50 agents that are in development right now, of which some will end up being customer-facing products. A lot of them will just lower our costs and improve quality. But I hope to actually like be able to, in the future, just go, hey, this suite of agents here just does work for you in your logistics. Like, don't even worry about logging in because your operations is dialed right now, thanks to AI.
You mentioned Sam Altman being an investor. Have you used the speed dial or taken advantage of that to kind of help Flexport be more on the cutting edge? Or
with Sam?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Actually, he was a hackathon, Flexport AI hackathon. We got Sam to show up and say some words of encouragement to the team and judge a couple of the things last year. So yeah, he's very busy, so I don't waste a lot of time. But I did help him recently. I want to say I'll take credit for this. If you're out there and you use Slack and ChatGPT, I'm the reason now that ChatGPT bulleted lists properly get posted to Slack. They were terrible at this, and I fixed that, and Sam is very thankful. You're welcome, Sam.
So it's a two-way street for real.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe someday you'll make him money as an investor.
Benioff responded to my tweet. Speaking of having a powerful Twitter, he was like, oh, let's fix this. And he texted Slack's head of product and like, fix this.
That's amazing. With employees, after you had to do these hard decisions, like several rounds of layoffs, maybe the energy isn't great. When you think about sort of what connected or what got people excited again to be doing hackathons, besides just the technology, were there any approaches or messages you had for the team that you feel like in hindsight helped get the company moving faster again?
Yeah, I mean, the first is that Flexport's always had a very compelling mission. We want to make global trade easy. And that is like, it's not like this contrived thing. I think it's like hard if you do some SaaS for insurance or something. It's a little bit like few orders removed from like, how does this impact people's lives? And so we've always had really committed people who just like think that this is both an important mission, but also fun, interesting, like fascinating. I don't know. You get to see the ships and how it all works. You get to meet the entrepreneurs and stuff. So that's like probably the most important thing that like kept us all together, that it was really like compelling work, a lot to learn. And then mostly culture, I always think is like basically a function of winning. Sometimes not always correctly reflected in your share price. Your share price goes up, people are happy, it turns out. So yeah, getting back to winning, which for us, like we didn't talk that much about culture in my first year back. It was like, we're going to cut costs. we're going to improve our unit economics, and we're going to, and most importantly, we're going to improve our quality for customers. And that's all we talked about for the first year. And it was only the second year of the turnaround where it was like, all right, great, we did most of those things. It's going really well. Now let's start talking about culture, and invested a lot last year in leaderships and like summits and training. Like took all the team to Vietnam earlier this year. Last year we talked, not the whole company, but the leadership team, the top 150 people or so. Doing kind of like brought maybe 400 people to Las Vegas for training, enablement stuff, like culture building, those things. I mean, lots of things you can do on
So
the
you want it to be
culture
fun to work at Flexport.
You want to be fun. Fun is like, you want to be winning. And like, okay, how do we win? It's like, everyone understands our strategy and our mission and how to win. Like, what are we doing to win?
Well, as a former competitive chess player, winning is fun for
Exactly.
me. I can't really imagine the two not connected.
Exactly. But just, we do these engagement surveys, kind of like how do people feel about their job and stuff. And I write all the questions for those myself. But the one really interesting thing is that the team that had the highest improvement, the biggest improvement in their engagement survey at Flexport was our customs team, even though they worked the hardest last year because of the tariffs, And so it's actually like, some people think like, oh, working really hard will like burn out the team. I actually think it's the opposite. If you're working on something that's important, like working really hard, you can see it in the metrics, like it makes people happier. So it's about showing people that the work is important and that they're getting rewarded for the value they create more than, I don't know, parties or something like that.
So as you think about the future, you're the man of the moment again on tariffs. You're saying, your customs agent is 10x better than a lot of the competition. Do you think that is going to be long-lasting, a major business and point of sort of differentiation for you? Or is this just the moment, and 2 years from now, it's not tariffs, it's something else that we're talking about, and it's just a series of these kind of spikes?
Global trade is here to stay. Like I said, since the Mongol invasion, there have been a lot of bad things that happened.
They did spread dumplings around the world, which is
yeah. Pierogies and Poland. Yeah, you're right. There have been some bad things. The 30 Years' War. There's been ups and downs. Global trade has gone on, and so I predict there will be more trade in the future and not less, and that that AI will do more and more of eventually all of the substantial decision making and coordination work of trade. It just seems basically what we've seen in the last 3 to 4 months. It makes it obvious and inevitable that it will not only be able to do most of the coordination, but it will also be able to optimize things at a level that humans could never do. And so I think you could take out probably 20% of the cost of shipping things around the world because of AI. And that's just like massive. And if you're the people that do that, you have the biggest company in the industry. And we're very well positioned to be that company. If we don't do it, it's purely because of ourselves. Like there's no one who's a better position to execute that vision. So
going from like Flexport, your guide to tariff chaos, to Flexport, your AI companion for more efficient shipping, something like that?
Yeah, and we're all in on that right now. And I think like if you're not, every entrepreneur I've met with in the last 2 months is like working harder than we've ever worked and is more excited about work than we've ever worked because of this, because of what's obviously now possible with agentic systems with AI. And I just feel, I haven't been this energized since we were in high school coding like games and working like around the clock because it was so fun.
So you're having more fun, or you're more energized now than you were in your first stint as CEO?
Yeah. Oh yeah, by far. And like even now more than in the past decade at any point. I mean, just what's possible. And every day, I mean, this morning Perplexity announced a Perplexity computer. It looks insanely good. I think we can use that to automate. I already sent it to like a bunch of teams. Let's go test this and see if it could solve this problem we've been working on. So yeah, I'm incredibly energized. And I think even the tariff problems they're not going to go away. You will always have to clear customs, right? And so I think we can be cheaper and better at doing that thanks to AI.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, I could chat to you for hours, but we'll just have to come back in a couple seasons and see if the tariffs are still going.
For sure. Yeah, we'll see. I don't predict anything's going to get too easy too soon, at least not as long as the current president's in office.
Well, we'll have to follow you on X just to keep up then.
Types fast.
Types fast. All right.